Chronigma.
All right, so today we're gonna dive into something pretty wild. We're talking Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, you sent me some fascinating stuff on this, like seriously mind-blowing.
Yeah, this site in Turkey, it's making us rethink like everything we thought we knew about early human history.
Mm-hmm.
And the sources you share, man, we got Dr. Detective hats on for this one, you know? Yeah, like we're solving a cold case, but from like 11,500 years ago.
A prehistoric cold case. I love that. And you know what gets me right off the bat? It's just how easily this could have stayed buried. Literally. Like, we almost missed it completely.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what else is out there, right?
Yeah.
But okay, let's start at the beginning. The discovery. And what's interesting is it wasn't like, boom, sudden discovery. It was more like clues slowly emerging over time.
Yeah, like a puzzle slowly revealing itself.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
you know, even the name itself is kind of layered. Like the local Kurdish people, they had their own names for this hill.
Yeah.
They called it Jire Mirazan, which means Wish Hill, and Zirabreske. And to them, it was just a tell, you know, like a mound, an artificial hill built up over time. This one happened to be in the Girmus Mountains in southeastern Anatolia. I mean, can you imagine just walking past this thing? No clue what's underneath.
It's wild to think about, right? The layers of time and history just embedded in the landscape. And what's even crazier is back in the 1960s, there was this archaeological survey. They actually documented the site.
Oh, wow. So they knew about it back then.
Yeah, but they found some, pottery fragments on the surface, typical stuff, and they figured, probably just a medieval cemetery. Case closed, or so they thought.
Oh, man. Talk about a missed opportunity.
Right. I mean, imagine if they had dug a little deeper back then.
Hold on. It gets even more interesting. So picture this. On top of this ancient mound is this, like, withered old mulberry tree.
Yeah.
The locals called the hill Tummy Button Hill.
Tummy Button Hill. That's an interesting name.
Yeah, right. And they would go there to whisper prayers, tie bits of cloth to the tree's branches. Like, unknowingly, they were marking a place of such deep history. Then fast forward to like the late 20th century, we've got this farmer, Mehmet Yildiz. He's getting ready to plant a pistachio orchard.
Pistachios. Okay, that's random.
Yeah, well, hold on. So he's clearing the land, and he keeps hitting these like flint tools, tons of them, super sharp, stone tools. And then there are these massive boulders sticking out, and he's having to smash them just to plant his trees.
So it's like the land itself was fighting back.
Yeah, kind of. And that's when it starts to dawn on people that maybe, just maybe, this isn't your average hill. So they logged it officially in 1963, but still, they thought it was a pretty minor find.
It really shows you the importance of, like, persistence. The land kept whispering its secrets.
Absolutely. But then our star archaeologist enters the scene. 1994, Klaus Schmidt, a German archaeologist, arrives on the scene. He was obsessed with the Neolithic period, when humans were transitioning to agriculture. And he'd already worked at another site, Navali Kori, also in Turkey.
Navali Kori, wasn't that where they found those weird limestone carvings?
You got it. Like abstract art almost, that had been reused in some later structure. And Schmidt, he was fascinated by them. He even made copies, trying to figure out their original form.
So he had this, like, specialized knowledge. His eyes were trained to spot the unusual.
Yeah, it was like having a key piece of evidence already in hand, for comparison. So, first time Schmidt visits Göbekli Tepe, he's struck by the way the setting sun is hitting these flint fragments scattered everywhere. Imagine it. A field of tiny diamonds sparkling.
Beautiful and intriguing. A good detective always notices the details.
Right. So he comes back for a closer look, and this is where things get really exciting. Among all these stones, he finds a few fragments, and he knows immediately they're from the same cultural horizon as Navali Kori. And we're talking some pretty strange carvings. A gecko that looks like a dragon, a limestone ring that's oddly modern-looking, a human figure, headless, but with, very detailed anatomy.
Oh, wow. Okay, starting to get a picture here.
And then there's this animal, super fierce-looking, just this savage jaw. This wasn't your typical Stone Age art. It was like finding fingerprints at a crime scene, connecting it to this early Neolithic culture.
Shot thickens.
And then, bam, he finds this T-shaped stone post just lying there. Now, anyone else might have thought, oh, that's from like an old olive press or something. But Schmidt knew. He'd seen similar pillars, smaller ones, in Navali Quarry, and he realized right then this thing was way, way older, from the very beginning of the Neolithic.
It must have been an incredible feeling to realize what he'd stumbled upon.
The sources describe it as pure exhilaration. But the story doesn't end there. As he's leaving that evening, he gets stopped by the local village militia.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they're armed with Kalashnikovs, and they're not too happy about these outsiders poking around their sacred hill. Talk about a tense moment in our investigation.
Yeah, it's a little too close for comfort.
Right. But luckily, things calmed down. And in fact, some of those locals, guys named Bakir, Seze, Lamy, Vaby, they actually became key members of Schmidt's team. For the next 10 years, they worked together, uncovering these incredible enclosures.
That's awesome, turning potential conflict into collaboration.
Totally. And what they found was just mind-blowing. Let's talk about the enigma of Göbekli Tepe, because these structures, they date back to, get this, 9600 to 8200 BCE. We're talking pre-pottery Neolithic.
Wow, so before humans even figured out pottery.
Exactly. This makes Göbekli Tepe the oldest known man-made monumental architecture anywhere in the world. Think about it. We're closer in time to the Sumerians who invented writing than the builders of Göbekli Tepe were to Sumer. It's like rewriting history as we know it.
It's almost impossible to grasp the sheer scale of time we're talking about here, and it predates those iconic sites, the pyramids, Stonehenge, by thousands of years.
It's crazy, right? And remember, no pottery, no metal tools. Writing wouldn't exist for ages, but these people, they quarry these huge limestone blocks. They shape them using stone tools. They made terrazzo floors with burnt lime like early concrete, and they even used a mud-based cement for their walls.
It's like, how did they manage that with such limited technology?
That's the million-dollar question. It's like finding blueprints for a skyscraper in a hunter-gatherer camp.
Right. It goes against everything we thought we knew about early humans.
And the structures themselves are just monumental. We're talking huge, round, oval, rectangular enclosures. And inside these towering T-shaped pillars, some of them are 5.5 meters tall. Like, imagine the effort that went into that. And get this, they've done geophysical surveys, and they think there are at least 20 more of these enclosures buried there, almost 200 pillars in total. What were these things for?
Okay, so we have these massive, mysterious structures. What clues do we have about their purpose?
Well, in each of these enclosures, usually in the center, there are two of these taller T-shaped pillars facing each other. And the leading theory is that they represent humans, maybe deities or ancestors. They don't have heads, but they have carved arms and what look like clothes like loincloths or belts. Very abstract, symbolic.
Okay, so we have these maybe human figures in the middle. What about the rest of the space?
The outer ring of pillars, that's where things get really wild. They're covered in these incredibly detailed carvings of animals. I'm talking scorpions, snakes, lions, foxes, boars, gazelles, wild sheep, onagers, all kinds of ducks, and a lot of vultures. And a lot of these animals are shown being like aggressive, teeth bared, claws out. It's intense.
Interesting. So a lot of animal imagery. Not so many humans, though.
Yeah, that's what's so striking. Human figures are super rare in the artwork. It makes you wonder, what did these animals represent to them?
Right, like what was their symbolic meaning?
Were they like totems for different clans? Were they trying to ward off evil spirits? Or maybe they're part of a bigger story, a myth about the afterlife or heroes.
It's like trying to decode a lost language.
Totally. And on top of the animals, there are all these abstract symbols too, like H shapes, crescent moons, discs. What did those mean? Early writing, maybe? Or symbols for their beliefs about the universe? It's a mystery.
A real head-scratcher.
So, with all this mystery, there are a lot of theories about what Göbekli Tepe was for. Some think it was a ritual space, maybe even connected to funerary rites.
Oh, interesting. What makes them think that?
Well, they found a ton of bird bones, especially crow bones. So some archaeologists think they might have practiced excarnation there.
Excarnation.
Yeah, basically leaving bodies out for scavengers to pick clean. Pretty intense stuff.
Wow. Okay, so ritual space, maybe funerary rites. What other ideas are there?
Some people thought maybe it was an astronomical observatory because of the way the enclosures are laid out. But the archaeologists who work there, they're not so convinced about that anymore.
Okay, so not an observatory. What else?
Another theory is that they were communal buildings, places where people gathered. And there's some evidence to support that. Like they found benches carved into the walls and little depressions that could hold lamps. So maybe they had roofs and people would meet inside.
Makes sense, especially if they were coming together for rituals or ceremonies.
Right. Imagine you're a young person in this community. You get brought into this incredible space. It's dark, maybe smoky from the lamps. All around you are these powerful animal figures, maybe painted with ochre, really bringing them to life. And in the center, these imposing pillars, maybe even draped with animal skins. It must have been an intense experience.
Yeah, like a completely different world, a portal to another reality.
And the size of these enclosures is telling too. Each one looks like it could hold about 60 people. So maybe each enclosure was for a different clan or a group of families, coming together for feasts, rituals, strengthening their bonds. That level of social organization is something we didn't think existed so early.
It challenges our whole understanding of pre-agricultural societies. We tend to think of them as small, nomadic bands. But this suggests something much more complex.
Exactly. And then there's the whole question of those animal carvings again. Were they meant to protect the site, like guardians watching over the enclosures when they weren't in use? Or were they more like spiritual figures, ancestors, or nature spirits?
I'm really fascinated by that idea. Like, were they trying to create a kind of sacred space imbued with the power of these animals?
That's a great question. And then there's another interesting detail. Some of the enclosures, the pillars, are arranged in this really precise way, like almost perfect equilateral triangles. Was that intentional? Was it about aligning with the stars or creating a sense of sacred geometry? We don't know for sure.
So many questions, so few answers.
It's like a detective novel where the clues just keep piling up. And then there's another twist. They found fragments of human skulls at Göbekli Tepe. And these skulls, they'd been deliberately cleaned, and they had these incisions carved into them.
Uh-oh. That sounds a little creepy.
Yeah, it points to the existence of a skull cult. They were modifying and probably venerating the skulls of the dead. What did that mean for their beliefs about death, about the afterlife? That's another piece of the puzzle.
Another layer of the mystery.
For sure. And we can't forget about the evidence of feasting. They found a huge amount of animal bones representing thousands of animals and tons of grinding stones. So they were definitely having some massive feasts at Göbekli Tepe. But what were they grinding?
Well, that's the big debate, right? Were they grinding wild grains, maybe experimenting with early forms of agriculture?
Exactly. Some archaeologists think they might have even been making a primitive form of beer, along with grinding grains for food. The beer or bread debate is still going strong.
Fascinating. So we have this complex site used for rituals, maybe for feasting, with all this incredible symbolism. But then what? It's not like they just packed up and left.
You're right. That brings us to the final stage of our investigation, the intentional burial. Göbekli Tepe wasn't abandoned. It was deliberately filled in, covered over. And that's another huge question mark. Why go to all that trouble?
It's like they were trying to seal it away, protect it somehow.
Klaus Schmidt, the archaeologist who first excavated the site, he thought it was a ritual act, maybe tied to their cosmology or their beliefs about cycles of time, like closing one chapter and waiting for the next one to begin.
Very symbolic interpretation.
Yeah. But these days, archaeologists are leaning towards a more practical explanation.
Oh, what's that?
They think the enclosures might have been filled in after the roofs collapsed.
Makes sense. Those tall, thin pillars probably weren't the most stable.
Exactly, and they weren't built to last forever. So a roof collapse would have made them unusable. And filling them in could have been a way to protect what was left, and maybe even just to deal with the mess.
So a practical solution to a structural problem.
Right. And they found evidence that some of the enclosures were damaged by landslides. They even tried to repair them, build terraces to stabilize the slopes. But in the end, it wasn't enough.
It's kind of sad, in a way. All that effort, and then nature takes over.
Yeah. But it also tells us something important. It suggests that Göbekli Tepe might have started out as a seasonal gathering place, a central campsite for nomadic hunter-gatherers. And over time, it became this incredibly important place for feasting, for rituals, for strengthening those clan bonds.
Like their spiritual center.
And then, somewhere around 8000 BCE, it starts to lose its importance. Agriculture and animal husbandry are becoming more widespread. People are settling down. Their way of life is changing, and maybe their beliefs are changing too.
So that Stone Age zoo, as
Yeah.
some have called it, maybe it just wasn't relevant to them anymore.
Yeah. It's a poignant thought, isn't it? This sacred place slowly fading from memory. Eventually, it's just farmland. The monumental structures buried, forgotten for thousands of years.
It's almost like a lost civilization, wiped clean from the historical record.
Except it wasn't wiped clean. It was rediscovered. And it's forcing us to rethink everything we thought we knew about our past.
It's a real game changer.
Totally. But even after all these discoveries, the big question remains. What was Göbekli Tepe really for? We still don't have a definitive answer. Its origins, its full significance, they're still shrouded in mystery.
It's like this site is constantly challenging us, pushing us to expand our understanding of early humans.
And it really makes you wonder, if these hunter-gatherers were capable of creating something like Göbekli Tepe, what else were they capable of? What other secrets are still waiting to be uncovered? Like, every new discovery opens up more questions than it answers.
It's a constant reminder that we still have so much to learn about our past.
All right, so let's take a step back and recap what we've learned in our deep dive into this ancient cold case. We've talked about the incredible age of Göbekli Tepe, the sophisticated construction techniques used by these pre-agricultural people. We've explored those enigmatic carvings and the many theories about their meaning. And we've delved into the mystery of its intentional burial and its eventual rediscovery.
It's been a fascinating journey, piecing together these fragments of evidence, like detectives trying to solve a crime from 11,000 years ago.
Exactly. And that brings us to our final thought for today. Göbekli Tepe existed before the rise of agriculture, before the traditional narrative of settled life and the development of complex societies. So what does that tell us about our early ancestors? What were their priorities? What drove them to create something so monumental, so intricate, so full of symbolism?
It suggests that their spiritual needs, their communal needs, were powerful motivators.
Right. They didn't need the practical demands of farming to inspire them to build something truly extraordinary. And that's something to think about. What truly drives human creativity and innovation?
It's a question worth pondering.
Absolutely. We've only scratched the surface of this incredible site. There's so much more to discover, so much more to learn. We encourage you to dive deeper into the sources we discussed, and to keep an eye on the ongoing research at Göbekli Tepe and other sites like Karahan Tepe. Who knows what other secrets are waiting to be revealed? What other cold cases from prehistory might we be able to solve?
It's an exciting time to be interested in archaeology. The past is constantly revealing new surprises.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time for another adventure into the mysteries of the past.
Until then, keep exploring.